Vikram, hi. Peter, hi. We can start the session. You can go ahead.
Right. Great. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session on the road to a global master's degree. This session is divided into two parts. To begin with, we look at the international ecosystem for postgraduate courses. This will be followed by a strategy session on GRE and Gmat and its significance to the university admissions process. So to begin with, please join me in welcoming Mr. Peter Mclaughlin, who is going to start the first session today. Mr. Mclaughlin is a graduate of the University of Cambridge and has over 30 years of international education experience, having worked across the US and UK. Great. So over to you, Peter.
Well, that's correct. Thank you, Vikram. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm phoning in from London, UK. It's a bit of a chilly day today. We're expecting a very wintry storm coming across UK. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Vikram. If I can start my slides, is that okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Just to make sure we are okay with everything. Thank you for the introduction. And oh gosh, that's a pretty old photograph, everyone who's on this broadcast. So yeah, that was taken a few years ago. So as you can see, let me now just move on the slides. Okay, hopefully that's on your big screen. Thank you so much for the invitation to talk to you today. As Vikram has explained, I'm very much an academic, so I have to discipline myself for the next 20 minutes to talk within 20 minutes. I'm used to lecturing and keeping my students or others entertained for at least an hour and a half sometimes. So please be patient with me as I may go off on tangents or talk too much, but I have a series of important information to share with you as to why I believe, or why we as part of On Campus, part of a Cambridge education group, where we have 3,000 international students studying with us in the United Kingdom and Europe and the United States. But myself, being a UK graduate, but also having taught in different parts of the world, I would really, my own personal and professional opinion would be to study postgraduate in the UK. So I'm going to share some of my main thoughts on this with you for this brief session, much of which you possibly already know in terms of generally, but I am being asked to give a little bit more specific details. If I can explain a little bit more, as my current position, I'm Progression and Partnership Director for On Campus, which is part of many of them well regarded and well ranked with QS in the UK and in Europe, and as I said earlier, in USA. But today I'm sharing with you my insights with all the experience, having been a centre director of one of our leading on-campus centres based in London, working alongside University of London partners, particularly for our pre-master programmes, but leading on to postgraduate courses. But, well, why study postgraduate in the UK? I think it's all about knowledge transfer and understanding. Choosing the UK, many of our universities are world leading, not just in terms of rankings and league tables, but in the quality of their latest research, as we've experienced and we're still experiencing this last few years. The world has changed, and we have to be making sure that the next part of the 21st century, that we are sharing and researching as much knowledge as possible as to the changes that have taken place, whether that's with AI, vaccinations, bio-revolution, internet technology, the internet of everything, in everything. So most important to have that aspect of research being understood. Also, the opportunity of postgraduate study in the UK would give that experience of gaining an international perspective, as well as all our top-ranked universities, well-ranked universities, having brilliant resources, quality of state-of-the-art technology, and most importantly, innovative teaching in developing critical study, critical thinking. Most important thing, aspect I share with you with my experience, and I have worked in India as well in time with NGO work a few years ago, is looking at how it's important to have international education, improving one's career and vocational prospects for the future. So the postgraduate programs I'm going to run through very briefly now to give you an idea, but also the opportunity of the graduate visa scheme that we now have, giving options for students who have graduated with masters in the UK or undergraduate as well, giving them the option of a 2-year extension of a graduate visa, allowing them to search for work or start up their own business or further studies, etc., after they've qualified with that degree. Just a brief snapshot of which partner universities we work with in the UK. The most significant ones that of note is perhaps the London group of universities, which we work very closely with, and they're not all on that sort of those logos on that chart there. We work very closely with Southampton, Aston University, as well as we have medical programs, but also there in Amsterdam and London, Europe. But more importantly, why the UK? Well, I've mentioned already that it highlights strongly in the world rankings. Whether that's you want to identify, and it's very important using the experience of Manya as well, because there the focus no doubt will be on the QS world rankings or the Times and Sunday Times, but we have a whole catalogue of league table rankings, many of them pretty dominant, but some not understood well enough, because, for example, if you have an interest in business schools, whether that's at Masters, MSc Finance or MBAs, I actually myself take more note of the Financial Times rankings or the Economist rankings, which are the leading journals for business intelligence and review. So that's something that I would like to mention. But with the UK, we have quite a number of in the top 10 QS world rankings, and then we have 7 in the top 50, and then altogether about 30 UK universities in the top 200, and that's out of a selection list of something like 1,500 global universities. So that's not bad, but significantly again, it's the quality of education that's so important. We have a long history of quality going back hundreds of years, and up until current day, we are still number 2 in the world, just behind the US, for ranking for the quality of research in science, particularly as a powerhouse for research. But more importantly now, with all the aspects that have taken place in the earlier part of this 21st century and going forward, is that what I must stress is that it's the impact, the quality of impact of that research in creating new innovations, new cutting edge products, design, whatever it might be, thinking, knowledge. If we look just, for example, of the terrible situation that we've had this last 18 months with the COVID, but the significant amount of research that's come out from all our universities across the world in terms of vaccination and biotechnology and the bio-revolution now in the whole field of pharmaceutical that's now taking place. Again, spurred on by a tragic episode in our history, at the same time moving forward, showing the evidence of that science and research being so dominant in the cutting edge of working and running alongside the best professors or the cutting minds, best minds of our academics and experts that I have the pleasure to work with myself. Also importantly, I hope I'm keeping to time, is that the UK education system, as you probably know already, but it's highly regulated by government and by independent authorities as well, and has been for quite a number of decades or years. We have, yes, in total something like 300 universities and colleges, all of them big names like your Cambridge and Oxfords and your LSEs and your Imperials and your Aston and your Southampton universities. All of them are independent and self-governing and active in their levels of teaching, research and scholarship, obviously, but they're all regulated and recognized by Royal Charter and legislation. Nearly all of them are state funded partially by the government. So therefore, the government as a stakeholder has to make sure there is consistent quality assurance in everything that's being delivered to our students, your students, home, European, international. And that's where we have regulatory bodies such as the Office of Students, used to be quality assurance by QAA, and all of our degree programs, all our institutes, everything that happens in our universities has to be adhered to what we call the UK Quality Code of Higher Education. Just to share that with you, and also the quality of the research and the impact of the research and the value of that research in making changes, innovation, new thinking, new discoveries. That too is measured by the research excellence framework that we have in terms of its importance, value, and impact. We're renowned for our innovative thinking. Obviously, much of you will probably have an appreciation of this already, but at the same time, all our university degrees particularly put focus on what we describe as independent critical thinking and problem solving. Yes, creativity and self-motivation, all these aspects of teaching methods and techniques goes on, but it's being done in a very innovative way. So already we've seen a move towards blended and hybrid learning, and that's innovation. And here we are all talking on the internet more so than any time before, but blending in terms of using digital learning with face-to-face, and our university campuses are all open. Things have gone back to normal, as you probably know, and blending in all the highly quality experience for teaching and learning. We also have a strong focus on developing international global perspective and outlook for all our students. High emphasis on communication skills, working in small groups and classes, but the content of the curriculum and the case studies is often real world, real life situation, real industrial problems. Yes, we're facing a downturn in the global economy. We're all trying to bounce back. This is being researched and tried to identify trends as they are now and looking to the future. So all that is enriching the teaching and learning. But on a one-to-one basis with students, we are always trying to encourage their communication skills, their ability for adaptability, and adapting to new learning environment, but also to the changing industry and the industrial environment, because all our programs, majority of, and obviously at the best universities, you get even higher focus, have a focus on career development, so that students are being prepared not just with knowledge and skills, but having the application of those skills to search for employment, to make their mark in their career field, whatever it might be, science, engineering, sciences, finance, etc., but to make their mark in their professional career. So what's important to mention is a lot of our master programs and good universities, they don't just offer 1 year program, which is a benefit, financial benefit immensely, because our masters are taught in 1 year, but a 2 year program that gives experience working in industry as a professional placement. So that might be worth exploring. And if it's a good quality university, the partners we work with, like Aston and Southampton, Henley Business School, if it's organized through the university, it's a paid employment as well for that time, for that period of time that one is studying. So these are important aspects to focus on. So preparing students for the 21st century skill set that's needed now, post-pandemic. So important. And that ties in with the excellence that we have with postgraduate studies. Our universities have an excellent reputation for what we call graduate employability. And some of the business schools we work with on campus, I've mentioned already Henley Business School, which is part of University of Reading. There you're looking at remarkable statistics and figures, real ones, of students who graduate from postgraduate as well as undergraduate, postgraduate, of over 90% of those postgraduate students finding employment or going on to further study within 6 months of their qualifications. So, and this again is available on a lot of the university's website. It's been measured also by QS and the Times ranking, the Financial Times ranking as well. identifies and measures carefully select groups of business schools in the UK in terms of their graduate prospects. So again, this gives evidence of how our universities are doing a great job in enhancing skills of graduates with career schemes, one-to-one advice, post-qualification. Also with Henley and others, even after qualifying, they will assist you with careers advice and guidance 4 years after your graduation. I've mentioned already year in industry programs. For the 2 year, they're worth researching for the MSc or the MA. And other important aspect, which is important to shaping global citizenship, and that concept is that nearly all the curriculum and content that's found in the best of our postgraduate programs and schools is the focus on global challenges, problem solving and case studies drawn from many global issues that we're facing, and there's a tremendous a number of them at the moment. But at the same time, looking at the real situation with real evidence of 360 perspective, not just having one version being presented by media or one perspective from a national point of view, but having that sort of global perspective. So important. And then identifying what those issues are, and then being creative with proposals for the future in terms of whether that's whether that's Enterprise. One of our university partners is Aston, that has every program being geared to enterprise and entrepreneurial thinking in everything subject area. So again, that's common ground to all our good postgraduate schools. I was asked to talk briefly about post-study work opportunities. UK is a vibrant economy. Yes, we've all been affected globally, nationally, internationally, but UK has remained steady. We're all working through a post-pandemic recovery mission in everything we're doing. For some countries or certain parts of Europe and other parts of the world, obviously it's going to take a little bit longer, but significant sort of return to normality here in the UK. The opportunity now, if you qualify with a postgraduate UK degree, is that you then can apply for what we call a graduate visa, which will give you permission to stay in the UK for at least 2 years after successfully completing the degree. If you have a doctorate, PhD, then it's longer. You have up to 3 years. And what that means is that you have to apply while you're studying your degree course. And as you finish that, you then can apply for the graduate visa in the UK. And with that graduate visa, you can work in most jobs, you can look for work, you can be self-employed, you can have a business idea, innovation, start on your own business, you can continue living in the UK, and if you have dependents, that's if they're eligible as well, that's possible. You can continue with voluntary work, or you can travel and then come back to the UK in that period. So it's very flexible, quite open there, but you can't extend it. If you do have a good opportunity and success with establishing work, then you transfer onto another type of work visa, skilled work visa, which is another opportunity for international students, international graduates as they qualify. Brief details of how you go about applying for that, conscious of time and the costs of it, etc. Financial benefits, well, nearly all our universities offer scholarships for the degree programs. Ourselves as on campus, we have a range of scholarships and bursaries if students needed a bit more better preparation or more time for preparation to move on. We call those pre-master programs. But all this information can be found with Manya and with my colleagues there in India as part of the on-campus group. Greater other benefits, I think, also would be with your degree of a 1 year master's. It's less time. I've taught in the States, other parts of the world, and those parts of the world it can take up to 2 years or even more. One has to be mindful also that the degree for undergraduate is 3 years, not 4 years or more. Although obviously competition for medicine and other aspects of research is a little bit more lengthier. Information is found on nearly all our university partners for scholarships and grants and bursaries. The living costs as well, depending on your city and location. London can be that much more expensive. In terms of entry requirements though, if I move on quickly, obviously good command of English. Ielts is required for direct entry. Normally it's in the area for the best of our universities, minimum would be 6.5 Ielts. A good quality first degree from the Indian subcontinent would be required. But if you're applying to what I consider to be the top 10, top 5, top 10 UK universities, then definitely a Gmat or a Gre is highly desirable, sometimes recommended. Although my experience working with Cambridge University, it can sometimes be cloaked to say that it's not often required, but in fact, most applicants do have Gmat and a Gre. It's the same when some universities say only 3 A-levels are needed, but when you look at the accomplished A-level entry of all the students that particular year, many of them having 4 A-levels or even more on average. So take good note from the good advice that Manya is sharing on this next session is very important. Other aspect of why UK is so attractive, well, it's because it's the home of English language and the experience. And it's not just about academic English, it's learning those communication skills in terms of business, negotiation, persuasion, working on a project together, taking advantage of working in teams, etc., and collaboration, because that's how we teach, particularly at postgraduate level. And it has to be said also that UK is one of the world's most diverse multicultural societies, and that makes it extremely popular as well. And it is, after the US, the second most popular destination for overseas students. And it's that mix of cultures, that mix of people, experiences, it brings about a different sort of attitude, a different type of perspective in working with other people, living with other people. And this is what the world needs in terms of community thinking, common good, working together, working with others, and creating a better world and future for everyone involved. And that aspect of studying, particularly at our best ranked universities. I'm a Cambridge graduate, London as well. Nearly all the University London and Southamptons and the like, they share a common mission of preparing students to be global citizens with the responsibility and a contribution to make the world a better place. And that would be with whatever subject field they are in. And the universities that we work with closely all share that tremendous mission and sense of purpose and focus. And this is just a quick snapshot of our on-campus programs, where we work with your Southampton, we work with many of the University of London colleges. We have pathways onto Queen Mary, Royal Holloway, special program that can lead to apply to London School of Economics, that's undergraduate. But this is just a snapshot of our different learning communities in preparing students to give them that extra boost, because sometimes, obviously, with Gmat and Gre, you're a strong candidate, you can apply direct, but sometimes one might need a little bit more lift, either on a 1 or 2 or 3-term pre-master program. I think I'm running out of time. That's the centre which I used to be centre director. Now I'm partnership. I work with many of our other universities, but this is Torrington Square. The building on the right is this one. It's the Senate House for University of London. We have a strong learning community on campus London, where we have progression pathways onto the universities I've just mentioned. Queen Mary, a popular destination also is King's College and City London University, Business School, as well as Royal Holloway, Goldsmith. So again, more details found on our website, Manya, and on Campus College can share more information with you. Quick snapshot, because I've mentioned several times Henley Business School. So important to identify the best of business schools. If you're looking to do your master's, looking to do your MBA, do look at what we call the Triple Crown, the triple accredited business scores. And on campus, we work with nearly 5 of those leading UK and European business schools. There's only about 100 or so in the world that have a Triple Crown accreditation. Those are the accrediting bodies in terms of stamping on the quality and the employability and the graduate prospects that those degree courses offer. Again, this is just one example. Henley is based at University of Reading. But what you'll find is that our business schools across nearly many of our universities have strong industry connections, and that feeds into the graduate employability prospects and the opportunities for students to find jobs and employment beyond their master's degree. And that networking is so important. Also, we have a new partner working now very closely with working closely with the University of Southampton, which is in the top 100. I think it's ranked around about 60 in the world. And this again is giving opportunities for our students at postgraduate for progression onto degree or undergraduate. I think that's the limit now, Vikram.
Great.
Unless you want me to talk about postgraduate skill sets needed for the future in STEM, I'm happy to do that as well, but not today.
Great. Thank you, Peter. That was a wonderful overview of what the UK education system has to offer. And as a product of the same system, I was very proud to hear about the strides which the UK education is making in fighting COVID, the overview you've given us, the industry connections. I've certainly experienced the research excellence myself. So on behalf of the audience here today, thank you very much indeed for all the insights into the UK education system.
It's a real pleasure. Briefly as it was with 20 minutes, but I'll be delighted to talk on any other topics or field. But thank you, Vikram. Thank you for that acknowledgement. And thank you, participants. If there are any questions coming through on the chat box, I'm happy to do my best now for 5 minutes or so and field some of those, Vikram.
Great. Thank you, Peter. While you take up some questions on the chat box, I'll just start with the next part of this international study abroad ecosystem presentation. So I'll just share my screen. If you could stop sharing, please.
Yep.
Great. So I'm going to now give the participants a very quick overview of popular programs which Indian students aspire for, popular destinations, as well as what universities look for. Okay, so we've seen in our experience that most Indian students, or a lot of Indian students, aspire for engineering, blended programs with business, and pure business programs. The most popular engineering and science programs are the Masters in Computer Science and its various specialisms which have emerged over the last few years, such as the Masters in Artificial Intelligence or Data Science, and of course, popular programs such as Electronics, Mechanical, and Aerospace. The popular business programs that Indian students have typically aspired for are the MBA and, of course, the Masters in International Management, which is an MBA for students with less than 3 years of experience, as well as specialist business masters such as Masters in Finance, Marketing, HR, or even Entrepreneurship. Of late, a lot of students have been looking at technology and business blended programs such as Engineering Management, Business Analytics, and MIS. Let's now look very quickly at what the top destinations are for each of these popular programs. So for engineering, the US, Canada, UK, and Germany are the top destinations that Indian students have been looking at. For business, it's very global because the MBA as well as the Masters in Management and other programs are offered by global universities across the world. So you would find these in the US, Canada, UK, and selectively across European Union in countries such as France, especially, as well as the Netherlands. So what do top universities look for? Top universities are looking for strong academic performance. They want to see how well you have done at college. They would like to consider the Gmat or the Gre to check your quantitative skills. They are looking to see whether you have undertaken any research work in your bachelor's degree, what your extracurricular activities have been, your motivation for the intended master's, the languages that you know, this is particularly important for Europe, your English proficiency, your Ielts TOEFL scores, your intellectual curiosity for your intended masters again, and for management programs as well as blended programs, they want to see intangible skills such as leadership qualities, your ability to work with people, whether you have relevant work experience or internship experience, whether you have worked internationally or have experienced international cultures, whether if not in your work or study, maybe in your personal life. And then they want to see how you present yourself to the admissions office in the application through your CV, essays, personal statements or statement of purpose, and your recommendation letters. They also want to see how you interview them. So interview skills are important. So academic record for postgraduate aspirants, the academic record is of prime importance because essentially you're going there to take up an academic program, and the universities want to see how well accomplished you are as a student in your bachelor's. The Gmat and Gre is the focus of the second part of this presentation, so I won't dwell too much on it. But however, I would like to say that for the programs that we mentioned, for engineering programs, the Gre is what universities are looking for. For management programs, the Gmat is what the universities are looking for. For engineering and management blended programs, it's Gmat or Gre, but that depends on whether that program is offered by the engineering department or the business school. So, however, these exams are interchangeable for blended programs and management programs to a great extent. So one good factor when it comes to taking the Gmat or Gre, a good factor that goes in your favor is if you do not have a very strong college academic background, because a higher Gmat or a higher Gre score can help to compensate for that to some extent. Now, in our experience, we have also seen that students who take the Gmat or the Gre do end up getting good scholarships, both for engineering as well as science and master's degrees in other fields as well, and management. So what do you need to do to get into a good postgraduate program? Whatever your field may be, it could even be psychology, economics, any postgraduate program at all. So beyond your academic profile and beyond your test scores, which are your Gre or Gmat, one of the most important criteria for admission into a master's program is research, because essentially universities want to see how good you are at taking a textbook problem and doing some independent research around it and presenting your authentic findings to corroborate that textbook problem and even contribute to the further research in that field. So what you as a student can do to build your profile to get into the top programs across the world is do try to co-author, if not author, a research paper, look at poster presentations, and develop your profile in other ways by taking up technology projects or relevant internships, participating in hackathons or entrepreneurship events, uh, looking at cross-functional work experience, especially if you want to change your field, writing blogs to show your passion for the field that you want to do your master's in, networking with professors and alumni to get inside edges into what those particular universities have to offer. And for management students, other extracurricular activities such as NGO work, sports, music, and your hobbies also become important. Now, when it comes to your work experience, technical work experience or relevant work experience would obviously contribute to your application for an engineering program or a psychology or an economics program. Now, when it comes to work experience for management programs, the way we look at it is that if you're going for an MBA, you definitely need to have some component of managerial experience on your profile. And managerial experience can be defined as having managed officially or unofficially, having managed a budget, having managed people, and having managed projects. So that is definitely something that is important for a management program. For a technical program, of course, you're looking at relevant technical work experience. Now, since we are looking at a variety of destinations this evening to get a high-level view of the international postgraduate study abroad ecosystem, we'd like to talk about international exposure here, which is especially important if you want to do your MBA and you're looking at Europe as your destination for doing an MBA. Equally important for Europe is the language requirement. So whether you're going to pursue a master's degree in Germany or France, knowing the local language would really help. At the same time, if you're planning to pursue a management program in Europe, knowing a European language really helps, and not only your admission, but it may often also be a requirement for you to graduate. Now, your extracurricular activities, as I briefly mentioned, they do have some importance. For management programs, of course, you're trying to show your personal growth through your extracurriculars. And for specialist programs such as psychology, economics, or finance, or whatever, you're trying to show relevant internships or relevant projects that have given you an understanding of the field that you want to be in. Qualities top universities value in international students are independence, motivation, creative and analytical thinking, commitment, resilience, your ability to take risks, passion for the subject, your authenticity as an applicant, and whether you have a flexibility or growth mindset. And overall, when it comes to the admissions decision, universities typically don't have a fixed weightage for all the criteria that we just spoke about. However, they do like to undertake a holistic review of you as an applicant, and they want to see through the way you put yourself across, whether you have overcome challenges, what your career goals are, how you have made the most of opportunities, how you have gone above and beyond to contribute to things and to take initiative, and why you want to study at that particular university. So that is all I have time for today in this quick overview. So do stay tuned for the Gmat and Gre strategy session that will commence shortly. In the meanwhile, I'll just take up a couple of questions while we wait for the Gmat and Gre strategy session to start. So stay tuned while I quickly answer a few questions for you. So we had a question here about spouse accompanying her partner who is planning to study in Canada. Yes, the Canadian study permit does allow the spouse to accompany the student. And in fact, the Canadian spouse visa linked to the study permit does allow this spouse to work in Canada as well. And then there's a question here on what the scope for MBBS graduates or a doctor from India doing masters in management in the UK. So yes, a masters in management in the UK is a conversion program offered by most universities. In fact, most universities that offer the masters in management prefer to take students from other backgrounds. So in that case, a masters in management is a conversion program that can help you get an understanding of business management so that you can move into the business field. Then there's another question here, does psychology also need Gmat and Gre? So the answer to that is, for psychology at the graduate level, you need the Gre. There's a question here, I got a 5.5 band in my Ielts, can I apply for the US? You could potentially apply for a pathway program, but keeping the visa chances in mind, you would be advised to retake your Ielts and get a minimum of 6.5 as your total score with a minimum of 6 in each section. So with that, I'll conclude the first part of this session and hand over to you, Nirmala, so that you can take students into the Gmat and Gre strategy session.
Thank you, Vikram. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second session. This is about secret sauce to Is Gmat and Gre and its importance in college application. So you all know the very first step of your study abroad journey is taking the standardized test, Gmat or the Gre. So in this session, we are going to see how these standardized tests are important in the college application process and the overall acceptance. We are going to understand this test. What is Gmat? What is Gre? We're going to see some of the critical strategies which help you to get that great score to get into Dream University. Stay tuned. I am Nirmala Shivkumar, Product Development Specialist, Manya Education. I have been associated with Manya and taking the standardized test Gmat and Gre for the past 14 years. Here we have Anant Rastogi, Director, Marketing South Asia at Gmat. Hi, Anant.
Hi, Nirmala. Can you hear me?
Yes, Anant, very much.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anant has been responsible for planning and delivery of all marketing activities for Gmat and Gmat by Gmat for the South Asian region. An executive alumnus of the IIM Calcutta. He also holds a master's certificate in business leadership and management from Michigan State University, USA. Anant is here to share us his insights on importance of Gmat in your college application process and overall acceptance. So let us hear to Anant now. Over to you, Anant.
Thank you, Nirmala. I just want to make sure my slides are moving. I cannot see them.
I can.
Okay, now they're moving.
Yes, Anant.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me just put off my video. Okay. So good evening, everyone, and thank you, Nirmala, for doing this session on a Friday evening. So let me start by talking a little bit about the Gmat, and specifically before that, when we talk about any assessment or an exam, we usually see them actually with the same lens, which is basically serving the same purpose. And that is all about, getting into a business school. But seldom do we really see the value that you can get out of a particular assessment or an exam. And also most exams typically are used to eliminate and filter out the green. And they are not necessarily made to assess your business skills. But however, when we talk about the Gmat, it is actually very, very different from all other exams. So it is actually made by business schools for business schools. What it also does, it basically assesses your business skills that are actually acquired over a period of time, rather than eliminating you from a certain process. And this truly is one of the biggest difference of this exam when you compare it with any other exam. Again, importantly, it also tells you whether you're actually fit for pursuing a business management program. So with these differentiators, I just wanted to let you know that you should not typically view all exams with the same lens. And the idea of today's discussion also is to provide you a perspective on the importance of the Gmat in your college application process and the value in your real life situations as well. Okay. Stand out in a competitive applicant pool. Mostly, when we look at international candidates typically applying to a top business school in the US or UK, they're actually represented, or rather overrepresented, by an applicant pool which is from either India or China. And not many of you realize that your Gmat score actually helps you stand out if you're actually from one of these overrepresented demographic pools. So we will see that a lot of people from essentially technology, operations, finance, consulting backgrounds, apply to schools in the US and Europe. And it is your Gmat score that will actually help you stand out, specifically, as I said, if you are from India or China. I heard Vikram talking about the ability to qualify for a scholarship. So a lot of times what happens that the Gmat score is actually considered while selecting candidates for scholarship. Although there are other metrics as well, which basically are taken into account in your profile that play a large role in securing a scholarship. But the Gmat score actually plays a major role. And we will also discuss a little bit about this in my subsequent slides. Make up on the weakness in your application. So in case there are a lot of candidates who necessarily do not have a very high score, let's say if you don't have a very high score in your UG undergrad, it can therefore somewhat be compensated by a good Gmat score along with other metrics, as I said, in your profile. Your Gmat essentially is considered as an additional data point by the admissions committee, especially if your undergrad performance does not necessarily accurately reflect what you are, the kind of person that you're today. So for candidates who do not have also strong academic backgrounds, the Gmat score typically becomes even more important to ensure that the university is essentially convinced about your ability to meet the academic rigor of that particular program. Positions yourself for job post business school. So what happens is that there are a lot of corporates, investment banks that look at the Gmat in their overall selection process. This is because employers are actually looking for higher order, critical thinking and reasoning skills, which your typical Gmat score will reflect. Your Gmat score, remember, are valid for 5 years. So you can use these scores in your interview process, post even your MBA, or if you're planning to pursue a PGDM program from India. Your IR scores essentially helps you differentiate both in admissions as well as in hiring. And the last point really is getting classroom ready. So while your GPA typically may illustrate your academic consistency, it is actually the Gmat score that basically underlines existing skills. Like, for example, your level of mathematical ability, your analytical ability, language proficiency, or logical reasoning skills. Essentially, what it is assessing is your composite academic potential. So there are a lot of candidates who basically go for jobs right after their undergrads. And as they're no longer in touch with their studies or academics, the Gmat essentially prepares them to be ready for the academic rigors when they go for a top-notch MBA or graduate management program. Now, I've been talking a lot about what Gmat has to say. Now, let's also hear from the horse's mouth. This is really a testimonial from the Assistant Dean of Admissions, Yale School of Management, Bruce Delmonico, and he talks a little bit about the relevance of a test score and how is it important in the holistic admissions process. So the first point he mentions that test scores are basically used to validate and predict performance because they're all standardized, and they help identify candidates who can be actually successful in the program. Test scores are also, as I said, standardized and can help evaluate on a broad applicant pool. We talked about the overrepresented pool from India and China, and specifically in those specific areas, test scores really stand out in terms of evaluation. Test scores can also help us comfort in the academic preparation. So undergrad records, as I mentioned, you might be less strong, but the test scores can actually suggest a very different story. The other thing is, in terms of, as I said, awarding scholarships. So schools, top schools like Yale consider scores for awarding scholarships. And the last piece is the most important piece, which I continuously hear from a lot of candidates is, should we take another test? If by retaking another test, will my profile weaken? Actually not. By retaking a test, it can actually be a very positive signal, and it can be an independent score in itself, and it's always considered as an independent score. Moving on, as I mentioned in my previous slide, a little bit about the scholarships. So what I've done is basically shared just a few scholarships that top business schools in Europe are offering. So specifically, if you're searching for schools in Europe and you are into this entire process, please do look out for the specific scholarships being offered by schools specifically for the Gmat program. And I'll talk a little bit about a few of these. Also, what I've done is I've shared a PDF document or a guide with the Mania team, so you could write to them and they could just typically share this guide with you. So let's look at what Amsterdam Business School has to offer, and oftentimes we tend to overlook at some of these nuances. So for their MSc or MIF program, which is the executive program, a typical score of 640 basically makes you eligible for a scholarship ranging anywhere between €1,000 to 10,000 euros. Come to Bocconi, again, I've handpicked schools where we see a lot of Indian candidates really sending their scores. So with a Bocconi, you are eligible for a €14,000 scholarship, right? And they're really looking at, from an academic achievement, your GPA, your Gmat score, and other, your personal profile, etc. EdHEC, you can actually get a 40 to 50% reduction in your overall tuition fee, and they look at the Gmat score. Similarly, HEC Paris, you can get a 50% tuition waiver in your MBA tuition fee if you have a good Gmat score. Similarly, there are certain institutions like the Jack Welch College, Luxembourg, which has actually offered range or in terms of percentage with the Gmat range scores that are available. So a 550 to a 600 score will make you eligible for a 10% reduction in their MBA tuition fee. Similarly, so on. So when you're looking and shortlisting schools, please do look out for specific scholarships. And needless to mention that if you've not necessarily given the Gmat, you will not be eligible for some of these scholarships. The next set of slides I'm going to really play for people who are really contemplating writing the Gmat are, freshers with 0 to 2 years of experience. So typically the Gmat is viewed from a lens Gmat is equal to MBA, and that's not the correct story. So if you're an undergrad, you typically have 4 broad options. I do recall some speakers had mentioned about specific programs being eligible for certain exams. So therefore, I would mention that if you're looking for, and that is absolutely correct what they mentioned, but don't rule out the Gmat just because it's a STEM masters and therefore you feel that there is only one particular exam which is necessarily required for that particular program. So the Gmat typically is also accepted for a lot of STEM master programs. So even if you're looking for an MS in information technology or a business intelligence program and data analytic program or an MIM program, they also accept the Gmat. Then there is a second option available for undergrads, which is essentially the deferred program, or what is called as the 2+2 program. So the Harvard 2+2 program or the Yale Silver Scholar program. In India, we have the ISB program, for example, the Young Leader program. That's, that is an option. You can typically block your seat and be a part of the full-time program. Then there are what is called as the traditional business master's programs, which is like your typical MIM program, or a master's program in international management. And the fourth option really is the full-time flagship program in India. And we'll talk a little bit about those programs as well. So there are broadly 4 options and not just one option, which is just the MBA. So I mentioned about the STEM master's program. This is just a small list. I would again urge you to please refer to the official school websites for your latest updates when you're looking for certain programs. And there are a lot of them that you can see, right from finance, accountancy, to business analytics. And these are all STEM designated programs. Moving on. Just give me a second. I don't know what happens when the video goes on. Yeah. So this is really an excerpt, and this is all about Gmat acceptance in India. Now, this is important for all of you to understand, and I've purposely taken this extract. Now, this is a AICTE handbook, which is published every year. AICTE is the regulator. AICTE stands for All India Council for Technical Education. So all PGDM programs that you apply to come under the ambit of AICTE. Now, what does the AICTE handbook suggest? If you look at the point number 9.5 in the handbook, and this is all publicly available, you can download a copy, that admissions to PGDBM programs can be made by candidate from any of the 6 All India tests, which is the CAT, ZAT, CMAT, ATMA, MAT, and the Gmat. So for people who do not know, the Gmat is actually one of the ratified tests by the regulator in India for all PGDBM programs, which are 2-year full-time program, barring the IIMs. The IIMs actually, and we'll talk a little about that as well, the IIMs actually typically consider the Gmat for their 1-year PGP program. Sorry, EPGP program, I apologize. So here are a list of all top schools. So when we talk to candidates and usually ask them when they're looking at Gmat from an India standpoint, they typically tend to limit it to ISB or an SP Gen or a Great Lakes. But here is a full list that's available on MBA.com. Incidentally, I wanted to also update you that the MDI Gurgaon, which is again one of the top business schools in the country, has now started accepting. It was a CAT exclusive school, but has for its full-time PGDBM program now started accepting the Gmat. So if you are looking for an option in India, please do know that the Gmat is a ratified test in India. Things about the Gmat online exam, I'm sure you are aware that the exam is available in 2 delivery modes. One is the typical test center delivery mode. The other one is you can take the Gmat online, typically at your convenience from any location where you have a good internet connection. So typically from your home as well. Now, there have been some changes, and I thought I'll bring forth those changes to you. So the cost of the exam, both the exams at the test center and delivery, starting October 20th, is now $250. The $25 addition is largely because of the GST implication. We were absorbing the GST for quite some time, but I'd also to mention the exam is also available at the same cost everywhere in this world. So the cost now of the Gmat exam is $275. The other thing is specifically for the online exam, you can register it similar for the test center delivery mode through the MBA.com website, and you can take it up to 5 times. So basically, you'll be eligible to take the exam 5 times in 1 year, or what is called as typically a rolling 12-month cycle, and your total lifetime limit is 8. So you can take the online exam all 8 times also, or 5 times, or do a kind of a combination between a online or a test center. It's important to note from an appointment slot, what are the differences. So you can typically book a Gmat online pretty much around the clock, in 30 minutes interval. While the test center exam is also available, but it's available on the available slot on a particular weekday. In terms of the other important pieces, that the exam is, which are delivered on or before 20th, you can include your 5 free score, and these 5 free scores in an online exam you can send only when you receive your official score, and they need to be sent after you receive your score within 48 hours. Additional score report, like in a test center format, can be purchased at a $35 cost. The important point again to note is for people who may have necessarily given the exam prior to October 20th, you are still allowed. So if let's say you've given it before October 20th, you can pretty much send your score unlimited. And these are all free of cost. But people who typically give it after the October 21st would need to, they have free 5 scores, but would need to pay for every subsequent exam. Now we will look at what are the similarities between the 2 tests. So essentially both exams are one and the same now. From a content and structure standpoint, both exams have the traditional 4 sections: the quant, verbal, reasoning, and integrated, followed by the AWA section. The length is the same, 3 hours and 7 minutes. Now we've not included the 2 additional breaks of 8 minutes each. The registration happens from the single source, which is the mba.com. Number of attempts for both exams, is the same, which is 5 in 12 months and 8 in a lifetime. And as I said, you could use them in combination. Score scales remain the same, and they are from 200 to 800. From an appointment availability, as I also mentioned, the test center exams are available throughout the week, but dependent on the test center's operating hours and availability. The online exam is pretty much available in 30 minutes interval round the clock. From an exam experience standpoint, initially we did not have the choice of sections in the online exam, but now that has changed. And you have a similar exam experience at the test center as well as on the online now. The 8-minute optional breaks remain the same. The only difference is if you're at a test center, you typically get a laminated booklet for all your scrap or your rough work typically. And in an online exam, you have the flexibility to choose between a physical and an online whiteboard. The cost, as I said, pretty much the same. Score validity is for 5 years. Quick important points on score access: you get an unofficial scorecard at a test center. So typically what happens, you can take a printout of your unofficial scorecard, but your official scorecard usually typically comes within 5 days. In a typical online scenario, the unofficial, you can actually preview your score, and decide. And then you get an unofficial, official score within 7 days. Test center preview, you can see your score. After finishing the exam, you can either accept or cancel. The cancellation option, however, is not available on the online yet. So you can pretty much review and decide, hold on. And when your score comes, send it in the next 5 days to the 5 programs. An important information for people writing the online exam: if you do not have a passport, so we typically use passport for your identification, the official ID that we require to give the exam. But in the case of an online, both the passports and the Aadhaar are accepted as official IDs. This is something that we've not been able to introduce yet on the test center version, and we are trying to do that. For those who have not been able to get a passport, it should not be a deterrent anymore, at least for the online exam. A quick update on schools. Now we keep hearing about, and you will also keep hearing about, that a lot of schools have waived tests, right? And this is mostly what we read from the media and from secondary sources. Now, when you peel the onion, and I thought I'll best show you the facts, and the facts are the best proof of pudding, is when you look at the top FT programs in US. Now look at what these programs are talking about related to the Gmat and the GRE papers. So when MIT Sloan says that it's going to waive, it's clearly mentioning that it's only for this year, and this is a university decision. Virginia Darden is saying it's on case by case, whereas the other top 1 to 16, you see, no one is really waiving the test. Now, a lot of this sensation has been created by media. My urge is, please do not go with such kind of news where they're saying they are going to waive the Gmat or GRE, because you're going to miss on some important aspects, as I said, on the Gmat, especially scholarships, and how the Gmat helps you stand out. Cornell Johnson, for example, requires a 100-word essay justifying academic readiness. They're very clearly specifying what extra is required beyond the Gmat. And in places you will see that wherever the waiver has been offered, there is a specific period that has been mentioned for the waiver. So please do not go by hearsay information and look at what the school websites are saying. A little bit on what Europe schools are doing. I thought I'll just give you a quick flavor of the kind of typical scores some of the top programs in UK are requiring, specifically for MBA and for masters. Now, typically, we also see a lot of candidates usually telling us that, if I have a score less than 600, then I may not necessarily, it's not a good score. Please do not go by all of that logic. There are clearly schools that are looking at good scores starting from 600. Gmat is just one part of the process. Your academic profile, or there could be something other in your profile that could be appealing to the school. So I would sincerely urge that even if you have a 600 score, do not get disheartened. The other important pieces, and I'll quickly cover it in the interest of time, is the post-study work visa. So you get a 2-year work visa if you basically typically do one of these programs. In schools in France, again, these are the top schools in France, and these are some of the Gmat scores that they're asking for. The good part in France is that they, with a guaranteed job at a set salary, students can actually remain in France after their study. And without a job, if you don't have a job at the salary which is specified, then you can stay for more than 1 year upon applying for a permit and then look for employment. Similarly, schools in Germany, they are pretty open. There are very open opportunities currently available for skills graduates, especially in Germany. And the only drawback, a little drawback, I would say, and I think Vikram mentioned about this, is that you would need to know German language and this is true for Spain as well. Again, talking a little bit about some other countries, you could just have a look at it. But as I mentioned, typically, if you are in the 600 plus, 650 plus, you have a variety of Gmat programs that may be available for you at your disposal. That is it from my end, Nirmala.
Thanks, Anand. That's a great insight, how important it's to take the Gmat for the skills they need to be successful in the MBA, to compensate the low GPA, right? A lot of reasons to take the Gmat. That's really great. Okay. And your insights on the online Gmat is also really useful. And there are very great updates. Thanks a lot, Anand.
Thanks.
Okay. So we'll stay tuned. We'll just continue. We'll understand the test, Gmat and GRE, and some of the key strategies for this test. Just a second, I'm sharing the screen. Okay, so good to go. Continuing with Anand's session on importance of Gmat. Let us also understand what is GRE. Okay, understanding the GRE, understanding the Gmat, and some of the key strategies which can be used for the Gmat and GRE questions. Okay. So let us start from the basics. Though I'm not going to go into detail of both the every test, because of the time constraint. I'll try to be brief, but though we have to start from the basics. So what is Gmat? The expansion of Gmat will actually tell us the purpose of the test, right? So the Graduate Management Admission Test. Just take a look at the name here, actually the expansion here. So you will know the purpose, right? So it's the admission for management, right? Graduate management, right? So it means it has a specific use and function, right? So it is owned, administered, and developed by Graduate Management Admission Council, who actually governs the admissions for the business schools. So it's created by what Gmat says about the Gmat is it is created. Gmat is created for business schools by business schools, actually. So it's typically a test which is designed to find out the right aspirants for the business schools, right? So that is the reason it is not prepared by anyone else. It is not prepared by the outsiders. It is prepared by the business schools, and it is for the business schools only. So it has a very specific reason. The purpose is one, that is the management, graduate management admissions. That is the reason Gmat mainly, right? And just to have that, do the job completely, okay? Consistently, Gmat is consistently validated, okay? Gmat ensures that, it is not just leaving as such, thinking that, it serves the purpose. It is being validated consistently to prove it demonstrates readiness for the business school. So altogether, what we know now is Gmat is a test particularly for the admissions, and that's the primary or the main purpose of the test. So what the Gmat test actually? So it is designed to test the skills required by the students to be successful in the MBA, right? So what it does not test is the business strategies, economics, entrepreneurship, motivational techniques. These are the things it is not going to test you at all. In fact, these are the things you're going to learn in your MBA program. What it tests is the reasoning skills, argument evaluation, data interpretation, and reading comprehension. In fact, these are the skills which is required to be successful in your MBA programs, right? Like if you have to do the business strategies, then you should have a good reasoning skill. If you want to gain good knowledge in economics, then you have to know how to interpret the data, right? So basically, Gmat is a test designed to have the skills which is required to be successful in the MBA, right? This itself a big reason for taking the Gmat, actually. If you want to be really successful in MBA, you have to have that skill set. And that is what the Gmat is preparing you for. Okay. Now, the key thing about the Gmat is the Gmat computer adaptive testing. This is the computer adaptive test. This may look very simple, but it is a big challenge in the test also. I'll tell you how. So it is going to adapt to your knowledge, actually, right? The Gmat will give you a harder question if you get a question correct, and it's going to give you easier question if you get a question incorrect. Okay. And you have to go question by question only, right? You cannot move around inside the section. What is the question in front of you? You have to solve that, give an answer, and then only you can move to the next question, right? So now when you see the next question, you may think it is easy or hard. You may not know where you stand exactly and what are you doing with that section. Whether are you moving really good? Are you doing well or not? You will not be able to guess at all because there are some experimental questions also given everywhere in the section, right? So this itself a challenge in the test. Coming to the Gmat sections, so you can see Quant section 31 questions in 62 minutes, average of 2 minutes per question, okay, and the verbal has less than 2 minutes. An integrated reasoning section, this is another section which is testing the ability to interpret data in the charts, graphs, table, etc., whatever is given there. It actually shows that it gives you around 2.5 minutes, but then each question will have so many items in that. So it is also a challenging section. And then the AWA section. These sections can be, you can choose the order in which order you want to take this test. Okay, either you can go with the same order like quant, verbal, and then AWA. AWA and integrated reasoning will go together. Okay, or you can choose the order. That doesn't matter actually. Right now, what is tested in the quant section is the basic math. Basic high school math is tested. Okay, no big math topics like trigonometry or calculus or your engineering mathematics, nothing. Okay, basic high school math is tested. Calculators are not allowed in this section. And for verbal, it tests the grammar, basic grammar, logical skills, and the reading comprehension. Okay. So these are the skills tested here. Now it looks simple. The material looks very simple. Okay, but how it is presented is totally difficult and under the time crunch. Okay, so that makes the test challenging one. So Gmat score. So it's 200 to 800 is the scaled score. The sections quant and verbal, you'll get a different score, but then it's then later on mashed up and it comes out as a scaled score of 200 to 800. Okay, and it is reported in a 10-point increment, which means you will have around 60 different scores students can get, right? I mean, 60 different scores are there because a 10-point increment score can be 700 or 710 or 720 like that. And it's only based on quant and verbal score. IR and AWA will have a separate score, right? So this quant and verbal, now if somebody asks you the total score, we're going to say Gmat score is nothing but the total score. Universities will ask for IR score also. They will be also having a minimum accepted IR score. That's different, but the total score includes only the quant and the verbal results. Okay, now quickly let us come to the GRE. Let's understand the basics of GRE, right? So this will help you to know, choose among the tests or to know which test suitable for you, right? Understanding the GRE. GRE also taken for all the same reasons like the Gmat. Okay, it compensates the low GPA. It is accepted by many universities in India also. And then for scholarship reasons, okay, there is a wide range of reasons for taking the GRE. Okay, now what is the expansion of GRE? That gives the purpose of the test. Okay, graduate record examination. Okay, it's very simple, right? Whoever wants to do the graduation, they do this test. Okay, so it is not specific to one thing. It has a wide range of course, colleges, anything, right? As simply whoever wants to do a graduation, whoever wants to do master's degree, right? So that's here required by majority of masters and PhD programs. Okay, then they have to do the GRE. Right? And as the name says, because it's just a graduate, right? Any graduation, some of the business schools and law schools also accept GRE. Okay. Now, again, this is not all, right? This is not all business schools. Some of the schools accept. They consider that a very good GRE score. They say that, it's the candidate is good to do the MBA also, right? That is how they start accepting this. Now coming to the GRE sections and scoring quickly. So it's in this order. AWA is the first section where the students has to take 2 essays, an issue essay and the argument essay, 30 minutes of each duration, each essay duration. Okay, and the scoring ranges from 0 to 6 with a half-point increment. Okay, which means the score can be 3.5, 4, 4.5 like that. Okay, and AWA score comes as a separate score, and this is always the first section the student has to take. Okay, and this is the challenge because 1 hour you have to keep writing the essay before you move on to the actual sections like verbal or quant sections, which is question by question. You can keep answering, which makes it a little simpler, but 1 hour you have to write the essay before getting into that sections. Okay, coming to the next is a quant and the verbal, and there is an experimental section. Totally 5 sections will be there, which can be in any order. It can be 2 quant, 2 verbal. Okay, and the experimental is nothing but 1 more full quant or full verbal section. Okay, so you will not know which is an experimental section. Totally you have to take 5 sections, and for you it is just all the 5 or scored ones. Okay, however, 1 experimental section is there that is used only for their ETS, research and development. ETS is the people who conducts this test. Okay, So they use that experimental section questions for the future use, okay, future purpose, and just for research and development, they use these questions, okay. So what is tested here? Again, for math, it is the same, okay. What the topics tested in Gmat, it's the same topics only, but just again, differently presented, okay, different question types, okay, and topics are same, algebra, arithmetic, geometry, more or less the same topics only tested, and the high school level math is only tested. Again, no trigonometry, okay, no calculus, don't worry, it's very, very easy topics tested. Only thing is, like, it is presented totally different, in a different question types, in a different format, and the difficulty level, or trying to make the question tricky, okay. It's not exactly tougher, it's actually tricky, right? With if you miss one word, okay, in the question, you may be into a trap answer, right? So for that only, you need to have some strategies, like, you know, read the full question properly. It's a very simple thing, but when you follow that, you will not miss out and you will not be into trap answers, okay. And what is about verbal? It's all about reading comprehension, text completion, and sentence equivalence. So in verbal, GRE verbal, 50% of the questions are testing the vocabulary, okay. Like this text completion and sentence equivalence questions is testing the vocabulary. So this is again, the verbal part of the GRE section is really challenging for at least Indian students, for us, because this verbal is, the vocabulary tested here is very high vocabulary, okay, and I have to memorize a lot of words, and I have to prepare reading more, building your vocabulary. Okay, that makes it a little tougher. And reading comprehension, another 50% is reading comprehension, right? So experimental section, I have already said, it is going to be either full quant or full verbal again. And you have seen the scores for quant and verbal, 130 to 170 with the 1 point increment, okay. Quant is something good for GRE. I mean, I can see many students getting very good scores for quant, and it's easy to get a perfect score in GRE quant. The verbal is little tough. Students can try to push the quant score to the maximum so that the total gets compensated. Okay. The total is nothing but the sum of the quant and verbal score. Okay, it's not a scaled score, just a sum of both. This again, GRE is a computer adaptive test, but not as same as the Gmat. This is again totally different. Okay, here students can navigate within the section. Like if you're going to take a quant section, 20 questions are there. I can just choose to do first question and move to the last question. Or if something is difficult, I can just mark it and move on to the next question. I can skip a question, I can come back to the question. So this freedom is there actually, but outside the section, I can't do anything. Okay, I cannot skip to the another section. Within the section, I can navigate. Okay, because this test is actually adaptive by section. Okay, I'll tell you. So here, the section 1 of the quant is a medium level difficulty question. Always section 1 will have medium level, right? It's a mixed bag, mixed one, right? Most of the questions will be medium, a few easy and few hard ones will be there. If I do that section rightly, if I'm going to do well, okay, then I'm going to land up in a second section, which is going to have mostly harder question, right? Okay, why I should land up doing a mostly harder question? Because only when you do mostly harder questions, your score is going to go high and high, right? And if the first section, if I do fairly well, right, then it's going to be a mediocre second section. Most of my section 2 questions are going to be medium with little easy and little hard ones, right? And if I do poorly in the first section, then I get mostly easy questions, but that shouldn't be a target, because when I land up with the mostly easy questions, my score will be very less, okay? I will land up mostly with 150 or something, right? So always we have to aim at getting into a harder section, right? Which also increases your score. This way, actually, it's totally different adaptive test compared to the Gmat, okay? Right, now coming to Gmat and GRE questions. So let us see one or two questions, because I'm actually running out of time. I'll tell you just few strategies here, okay? Yeah, so this is you can see this slide, which so much data here. Okay, this is not a question, right? This is Gmat quant section data sufficiency question, right? which is not so very frequently, you will not see this type of questions very frequently in the competitive exams. Okay, it's little rare actually, right? This is the exact page which is shown to the students also while they take the test. Just in this and instructions for doing the data sufficiency questions. Okay, in short, what I can say is you have to be really know what is this actually, what is this 5 answer choices mean, so that you save time. Okay, either you have to memorize this or you have to get into a strategy. Okay, what is the strategy, right? So when the first statement is sufficient means, what I mean is, this is not going to ask you the exact value of for a question. Say if I'm going to say what is the value of A, I don't want to find the value of A. I have to just find out whether it is possible to find the value of A. Okay, there will be 2 statements given. I have to find out whether it is sufficient to answer the question. Okay. If the first statement is sufficient, then answer can be only A or D, right? Then B, C, E is completely gone, right? So in one go, you can just hold on with either AD or BCE, right? You can either eliminate 2 answer choices or 3 answer choices in one go, right? So this is a very good, very nice, or very useful strategy followed for data sufficiency questions, which is close to 50% of the quant section, right? Let us see quickly one question. See, what is the value of A? They're asking for the value of A means they're not actually asking for the value of A, they're just asking whether the 2 statements can give you the value of A, right? Look at the first statement. Is it giving you the value of A? Can you find the value of A using the first statement? Is that possible? Not, because without knowing the B value, I cannot find the A value, which means the first is insufficient. When the first statement is insufficient, then AD is not my answer at all, right? So by just knowing the first statement, first analyzing the first statement, I can just hold on with either AD or BCE, right? This makes my work very easy, eliminating 2 or 3 answer choices at a time. Moving to the second statement, is it sufficient? Still, for the same reason, it is not sufficient, because I don't know B, I can't find the value of A. Not sufficient, which means B is not my answer. I will take both together. Okay, both together I can solve and find the value of A. Actually, I don't want to solve, right? I have to know whether I can solve or not. That's it. So the answer is C actually. C is nothing but together. I need both the statements to find the answer. So this is one sample question for data sufficiency. Now coming to quant comparison questions in GRE. Okay, for every GRE quant section, the first 7 questions will be this type of questions. Here also you can see 4 answer choices, and these answer choices are fixed for all GRE QC questions. Okay, and it is very straightforward compared to data sufficiency also. But we just find out quantity A is greater, quantity B is greater, both are equal, the relationship cannot be determined. Okay, now if I see this question, do I have to really solve this question? No, I shouldn't. That is not the intent at all, right? So when the base expands, the height has to reduce, obviously, right? So this, just at looking at the question and just interpreting and analyzing, I can find out the answer. So answer is A, right? So these are the simple strategies. There are more strategies actually, right? For algebra questions, we have specific 5 strategies. Okay, 90% of the questions can be solved with these 5 strategies itself, actually, right? So the strategies are important, and why it is important is because it's like 4 hours test. GRE is particularly 4 hours test. Okay, 4 hours. Just think of driving for 4 hours. Okay, you will definitely take a break, or otherwise you will lose focus, right? So that is how here actually, right? 4 hours you have to concentrate and take a test, and every section is different, right? Like you ride on a national highway and a state highway is totally a different approach, right? The same way the GRE sections have and the Gmat sections have a totally different approach, each section. To understand the approach and the strategies applicable, for that particular sections, okay, you need to do a complete preparation for GRE and Gmat, and this requires a lot of practice and stamina to take the 4 hours test, first of all. Okay, This is some verbal questions, but I'm not going to take this now because of the time. This is the Gmat critical reasoning question. And this is sentence equivalence question in GRE, which tests the vocabulary. You can see the answer choices. So this is how the GRE questions will be. Nearly 50% of the questions will be like this with all difficult vocabulary words. Okay, that is how it is made tougher actually, but the strategies and process of elimination, okay, how to eliminate answer choices will help you to get into the right answer without doing much of memory. Definitely memorizing is there, vocabulary should be strong, but if we can't do so many words memorizing, right? So there should be an approach and strategies to handle these questions. Okay. Right? How can you get the Gmat? You can get the Gmat or GRE score you need to get into your dream business school. How you can achieve that? Okay, we have wonderful score guarantee programs with GRE 90 plus hours of live instruction. We have Gmat exclusive programs which is aiming at 700 plus Gmat score. So you can learn all the strategies because we can't cover everything in one day. You can take up these materials and strategies from us. Manya has been helping students get into their dream universities for the past close to 20 years. Okay, with this, I'm concluding here. Let me see some of the questions. If you have any questions, ma'am, we want materials to prepare GRE. Yes, you can reach out. Just a second. I will show you the contact details. You can, just a second, yes, I'll show you. Reach out to us, okay? Reach out to us in this number or just mail us. Okay, you can reach out to us to get the materials. Can you show the syllabus of Gmat once? Okay, what is considered as good GRE score and what are cutoffs for different universities? Okay, good GRE score, right? Like if you are aiming at top universities, anything 320 plus can be considered as a good GRE score, which will take you, and considering other items also, your profile, your GPA, everything, consider all these things. If you get a 320 plus can take you to a good top school. Okay. Will you provide any classes for Gmat or GRE? Yes, we are providing classes. You can reach out in this contact number. There is a question when the exam starts. Exam starts, Gmat and GRE is given almost on every day. Okay, online testing is there. At home testing for GRE, it is called at home testing. It is also available, Gmat online exam. So it is conducted almost every day. Once you are prepared for the exam, you can take the test. Which all colleges accept Gmat score? Okay, almost all colleges, all business schools accept, top business schools accept Gmat score. If you are shortlisting the universities, you can check with the specific universities. Or if Anant is there, maybe Anant can take up this question. Which all colleges accept Gmat score?
There are close to 2,000 schools and 7,000 programs that accept the Gmat across the world. My suggestion is that you can look at the FT top ranked school if you're a ranking buff, but all of this information is available on mba.com.
That's great. That's a great number, Anant, actually.
Yeah.
Do we need to pay anything for the classes? Okay, you can reach out to us actually. Mohammed, you can reach out to us in this number. We can discuss in detail about that. Again, there is an MBA question. How many years of work experience is required for MBA in USA?
Typically 4 years plus, Nirmala. A good MBA program will ask for a 4+ years of experience.
Okay, Prajwal, 4 years is the answer for you. Okay, I think Vikram is answering on the chat. Very good. There is another question from Arjun. I think Vikram has answered that. Okay, then any other questions? Do I need to do 1 year diploma after my BCom in other to show 4 years of graduation for applying to US business schools? Okay. Anand or Vikram can take up this actually. Do I need to do 1 year diploma after BCom to show 4 years program for US business schools?
I think Vikram would be in a better position.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Nirmala. I'll just jump in. So the answer to that is yes and no, because many business schools in the US do accept a recognized, do accept a 3-year bachelor's degree from India from a recognized university. However, it will always help to get the extra year of education in place. While getting the 1 year extra, you should try to get 1 year extra education from a degree program rather than a diploma, because if you want to equate your education with the US bachelor's degree, which is of 4 years duration, then you should have 4 years of degree education from India as well. A diploma may not always suffice. There may be some quality accreditation and recognition issues as well as far as a diploma is concerned. So if you do want to have a 4-year, 16-year education overall, then please go in for a 1-year degree program.
Okay, Anand, there is another question. Sorry, Vikram only. Good Gmat score for top Canadian colleges.
So again, Nirmala, there's a whole range out there.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to give a score here because, you know, the Canadian admissions process is very subjective, and Gmat, I mean, they also look at it as a range. But if you want a rule of thumb answer, then I would probably speculate that given that Canada is so popular as a study abroad destination now, for the University of Toronto's Rotman School, 750 would be a competitive score, and for York Shoelake and Richard Ivy, maybe 720, 730 would be a competitive score. UBC as well, 720, 730 should work. However, Gmat is something that they look at as a range. They also look at your quant and verbal split, because they would want a balanced score, not necessarily very high or very low in either section. So balance is very important. Given the competition level, if you as a candidate have the time to prepare, then why not try and get as high a Gmat score as possible, because it could even influence scholarship for you.
Yeah, if I could add a little, Vikram, you absolutely rightly mentioned, as I was talking about, that the applicant pool from both India and China traditionally is on a very high, specifically to Canada. And therefore, that means that the average scores that we also see of candidates applying from India is fairly high than other nationalities, because these schools typically have a very diverse classroom. So if you are from somebody from a finance consulting background or an engineer, typically you need to have a high score.
Yes, and that's absolutely right, Anand, because many occasionally the business schools that we have spoken to or the universities we have visited, they have told us that in sometimes they believe that, or often they believe that the average score of Indian and Chinese students is 50, 60 points above the published average, which includes all nationalities, including the American or the Canadian citizens, where the score requirement might be far lower and bringing down the average.
Absolutely correct. There's something called as country percentile. I don't want to take up too much time, but what schools usually tend to see is a country percentile. So the country percentile for India and China is usually traditionally extremely high. So typically a candidate like somebody who would get a 680 in India would actually be a 640 for the same percentile for somebody in Nepal or Sri Lanka for that matter. Just to
That's
give you a
great,
sense.
actually. That's great. Actually, we are hard workers, seriously. Okay. So there is another question. Any upper age limit for GRE and university education? I
Not
don't think
for the
so.
US, not for the
Mhm.
US, because US has a very holistic review in both the admissions as well as the visa process. They believe that if you need the education, you should get access. Uh, However, having said that, uh, in UK, Canada, and other countries, sometimes even if you're able to secure admission, which you can get as a mature candidate or as a highly experienced candidate, the visa might be a slight issue if you have too much of work experience.
There's another question. I'm finished with my Gmat classes, but I took a break. So can I get extension to my classes? Yes, definitely, Rahul. You can reach out to us on that. Is it required to get work experience to get into National University of Singapore, NUS, for MBA?
Yes, very competitive program, a very small
Mhm.
class size. So lot of good work experience, good managerial work experience, showcase your leadership skills, show your affinity for NUS, and do get a high GMAT because NUS, like a typical Asian program, is very much test score focused in their admissions. And it's a very small class. You're really competing to be amongst the very few students they would take from India.
Okay. I think there is one more question, but it is very specific. Sir, I have 15 years experience in pharmaceuticals industry and higher qualification in MSc. What is the best university in Germany for my profile? And what's the Gmat score required? Actually, this is very specific query. I think you have to reach out to us directly to understand your profile, right, Vikram?
Yes, because the typical MBA programs in Germany, such as the top MBA programs, Mannheim, ESMT, WHU, Koblenz, they would want maybe 6 to 8 years of experience. But having said that, you can discuss your profile with them. Most German business schools have a pre-application where you upload your CV and then you can have a chat with them and they give you feedback of whether or not you should apply. And certain institutions like WHU Koblenz also have a executive MBA program in partnership with Kellogg. So they might actually consider you for that. But whether they do or not, do have a chat with them and figure out whether they encourage you to apply, whether 15 years of experience is too much, or do people get in? Because I know in Europe, it is quite common for highly experienced students to be in the classroom. Their MBA model is a little bit different, but then this is something, as Nirmala rightly said, you want to discuss with each school to get their feedback.
Okay, that's great. So questions are done.
Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you, Vikram. I think, is it over now?
Yes, Anand. Thanks a lot, Anand.
Thank you,
It's a
Anand.
great insight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vikram.
Thank you, Nirmala.
Yeah.
Session we had today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Hope it was useful for you all. Yeah.